Good morning and welcome to the Bluebird Mining Ventures Limited Q&A session. Throughout this recorded meeting, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted anytime via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click Q&A, type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Aidan Bishop, Executive Director. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Bluebird Mining Ventures Q&A. So I've got all my list of questions that people have submitted. I'm actually in the UK at the moment. So I think last time we did this, I was in the Philippines, and there's always internet connectivity issues in the Philippines, but here in the UK, we seem to be pretty good. Let's go right into it. So the first question, why is it delay after delay with the permit? It should have been sorted years ago. Thank you very much. I sense shareholder angst with that question. So look, let's go through permitting. So permitting for exploration is very simple. Why is it very simple? Because you're not trying to take anything out of the ground. There's no environmental footprint. There's no social disruption. It's pretty straightforward. When you want to get stuff out of the ground, the permitting is extremely challenging anywhere in the world. It's a multi-year process anywhere in the world. You can look at in the UK recently, a coal mine was refused permits to start another coal mine in the UK. In Australia, a mining major was declined a tailings dam after several years. In the southern Philippines, one of the world's largest undeveloped copper mines owned by Glencore, and couldn't get permitting, still going through the process. Of course, there are companies that do get permitting, but it is a very long process. By all accounts, Korea is a little bit easier in terms of bureaucratic processes than other places in the world. We have all the permits bar one or two. The mountain temporary use permit obviously being key, which is a local permission. So what does it take to get permitting? Obviously, you need to have some permits in place. We already have this. It's really around. There's a political component to it, national, provincial, local. There's an environmental component to it. There's a social component to it. It's quite a process. Yes, there's bureaucracy. Yes, there's red tape, but there's a lot of politicking. There's a lot of social community type of work that takes place. It's not easy, and it shouldn't be easy, because what we are proposing to do is reopen a gold mine, which does have an environmental footprint, which does have a social impact, which does cause disruption. We would say positively in many cases, because it brings income into a community, but still it is a process. It's not a case of, it should have been sorted years ago. The average time to get a project from exploration through to production is just under 30 years around the world. That's from the beginning to the end. So I'm not saying it's going to be 30 years, because obviously we're well advanced into the process. But whilst I understand the frustration, it is a process. We still have to keep doing it. We still have to keep going through it. And as we have seen evidenced in Korea, there are companies that have been able to receive permits. One being Ivanhoe in the 1990s did. There was another company, a tungsten mine, took them quite a few years. The Sandong tungsten mine, they got permitting. So we're going to keep going on. Next question. You keep saying the company is undervalued, but as I see it, the Korean mines carry little value without the mountain use permits. I take confidence that you do not keep diluting the equity, but what is your confidence level in getting the permits prior to Christmas? Okay, several things here. I don't agree with you, because to say the project has no value or little value without a mountain permit, that basically would mean then any exploration company that doesn't have full permits for production basically has little to no value. The fact is, every project has value based upon metal in the ground, based upon its stage of development, based upon investor sentiment, based upon the markets and so forth. So I would say this project has great value based upon what's in the ground, based upon that we are advancing it. We could say, if we wanted to, we could say, right, we're going to do some more exploration on this project, build up more resources, build up more of an understanding. There's nothing to stop us doing that if we wanted to. So I actually think it has great value. It's not binary. It's not a case of this was worth tens of hundreds of millions with a mountain permit, and it's worth zero without it. That's not the case. I mean, otherwise you would have to say, oh, this exploration project, like Batangas, for example, if it doesn't have its commercial permits, it's worth zero. That's not the case. So the next part of that question was, I take confidence that you do not keep diluting the equity. Thank you very much. That was, I mean, as you can see, we're trying to be as non-dilutive as possible. Management is converting a substantial amount of fees into stock that's been accrued since like 2021, 2022. If we didn't have confidence in the company, why would we do that? I wouldn't do it. If I thought there was no chance we'd ever get these permits, then I would not be converting into stock. I would just rather take the cash and sit back, hope, and wait. So that's not the case. We are looking to be as non-dilutive as possible, and we're looking to conserve cash, and and when that day comes, or those days come, that we can unlock the value of this company, which will transform where it is today to the next level, it would have all been worthwhile. The third part of that question was, what's your confidence level in getting the permits prior to Christmas? Very hard to say. We're not applying for, it's not like a bus pass or a fishing permit, right? You can't just check online, oh, when are they going to issue it? There's many components to this, right? So it's difficult to say. So I really can't, I don't know. I can't answer that question, to be honest. Next question. Can you give an overview of the funding and why you have chosen the loan route? Well, I think we got into that because, the share price was obviously rather low. And if we did do an equity placing, then we would be having to do it at a kind of a deeply discounted value. On a personal level, I didn't want to do that. And I didn't think it was a good thing for shareholders. I did speak to a couple of substantial shareholders and asked, would they be happy with a deeply discounted placing? It was a resounding no. And so one of our substantial shareholders who has helped us, Catalyst, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but they've come up and offered a funding package, which we're very grateful for, and it allows us to progress, and hopefully, with the benefit of hindsight in the future, we'll be looking back and say we're glad we didn't take that deeply discounted placing. We took the loan funding, and it will be best for all shareholders. The next question, £350,000 is a relatively small amount. Is this adequate? Well, yes, it is. So the good thing is, recently we trimmed back the board from 5 to 3, I believe it is. And so we keep cash costs very, very, very low. The biggest costs in our company are auditors. Audit fees go up every year. It's astonishing how much auditors get paid. The FCA, of course, are expensive every year, annual fees, various share issuance fees, monitoring fees, the London Stock Exchange annual fees, RNS fees, share registrar fees. These are really the bulk of your costs when it comes to a public listing. We keep our cash costs in terms of board costs, management costs, extremely, extremely low. So that's why 350,000 is adequate. As per the announcement, we have stated that will last until the last quarter of next year. So we've got 12 months to transform the value of this company from a funding perspective. What is the current JV model and how much is committed to project development? So I think this one's come up before. You can see that in the RNSs. 3 projects, Gubong 5 million, Kochang 2 million, and an estimated 2 million at Batangas. The difference being Batangas doesn't have a set dollar amount. It's basically all costs until the environmental compliance certificate and the declaration of mining project feasibility is approved and a construction decision is made, estimated to be around 2 million. I can give a bit more on that, how Batangas is developing as we go through this Q&A. So that was the JV model. Why are you doing a contingent placing too? That's a good question. We didn't necessarily need to do that, but it was felt that it would only fair to allow existing shareholders to participate alongside the funding. And so what we came up with was a placing at a penny with an accelerator warrant at 1.25 pence. What that means is that if anybody subscribes to this placing an existing shareholder, you get the shares at a penny, you get a warrant at 1.25, 1-for-1 warrant. And if the share price trades on a 10-day volume weighted average price above 1.5, then you have a period, I believe, you've got to exercise that warrant or lose that warrant. So if we have good news in the coming months and the share price re-rates or starts to move upwards, then for shareholders that they're in the money on the placing share, and potentially they can be in the money as well on the warrant exercise. So that's what we did in terms of the contingent placing and why we did it. How do investors participate? So as you can see from the RNS, you can call the company broker, SI Capital. They can help facilitate the placing. If you're a client of SI, I believe it's easier. If you're not a client of SI, you can ask your broker to contact SI Capital, and they can provide instruction of how you can participate in the placing. So close of business on Wednesday, I believe, is the last date that anybody can participate in the placing. Next question. There are significant director fee conversions. What should we read from this? Well, again, I think to restate, what you can take from this is that directors, management are absolutely happy to waive the right to cash remuneration and take equity on the same terms as what is being offered to everybody else. So to me, that is a great it's a great show of strength. It's a great show of support for our existing shareholders, and it's also a great display of confidence in that we believe, we're on the right path. We got to keep continuing. We got to keep pushing through. But there's a big prize at the other end of this. So, and that gives me personally the will, the desire to want to be able to, convert accrued fees because I believe the value of the equity is so much higher than the cash. Next question, who is eGreen and why doesn't it have a website? So eGreen is an environmental and management consulting company in the Philippines. They have been contracted to do the environmental impact assessment leading to the environmental compliance certificate. So let me go into a bit of permitting in the Philippines. So the history of this project, our previous partner when we first had this project was a company called Red Mountain, Australian company, ASX listed. They started hiring foreign consultants, foreign environmental companies, foreign engineering companies, spent well over $1 million and were not able to achieve permitting. So we've gone from a completely different way of thinking. So with my knowledge of the Philippines, I understand that permitting is very much about knowing how to navigate bureaucracy, knowing how to understand politics. It's not so much about having big singing, dancing companies that are going to charge you expensive fees. That's not going to get the job done. So eGreen is an experienced company that does environmental compliance work, environmental impact assessments. Now, why did we choose them? Specifically, the reason why we chose them was because our contact inside of the Environmental Management Bureau, the government office of the Philippines, said, if you want to get an environmental compliance certificate, this is the one, this is the accredited person, these are the people that you use. So the fact that they have a website is neither here nor there. It makes no difference. The important thing is that they have a track record with the Environmental Management Bureau. In fact, one of their partners is an ex-Environmental Management Bureau employee. That was another reason why we chose them, because they know exactly how to navigate, and that's very important. Similarly, for the declaration of mining project feasibility, the previous partner, Red Mountain, spent over $1 million, hired, as I say, expensive consultants, expensive engineering companies, well-known branded companies, and they couldn't get it. So again, because it doesn't come down so much to the technicals, it's about the politics, it's about understanding how permitting really works. So what we've done to lead our declaration of mining project feasibility, we have taken a locally recommended mining engineer, his consulting company, and who's capable, who has done this before, is a lot cheaper than all these foreign companies, and he just so happens to be the nephew of the regional director of the Bureau of Mines. And so there you go. So that's another reason why we have done that. So again, it comes down to understanding permitting, what it really takes. So that gives you a bit of insight into eGreen, who they are, why they have that. I don't know why they don't have a website. Probably isn't really necessary, but they are accredited with the Environmental Management Bureau. Next question. Has any farm out cash been allocated yet? If so, where? Yes, so money is being spent. Let's talk a bit more about Batangas, because there's a lot more happening on the ground in Batangas than in Korea. So far in Korea, everything, again, there's nothing to do on the ground, although we are investigating, as per a recent RNS, how we can refurbish the adit at Ko Chang without the mountain temporary use permit. So that's being planned. There's some engineering work, contracting work being designed and planned for that one. In terms of Gubong, there's some discussion going on with a landowner who's amenable to a deal on his land there. But at the moment, the bulk of farm out cash is being spent in Batangas. So again, that's the process of the environmental impact assessment, the declaration of mining project feasibility, and all that entails. So that's where the bulk of cash right now is being deployed by our local partner. I think there's a question about that a little bit later on. What's next for Batangas? Okay, so next for Batangas is to continue that, the environmental impact assessment. So the environmental impact assessments takes place over 2 seasons, so wet season, dry season, in terms of data collection. And the declaration of mining project feasibility, there's a number of technical aspects to that, one of which is we're looking at the non-cyanide, not using cyanide in terms of processing in gold. So cyanide is pretty much a standard when it comes to processing in gold, but cyanide is very emotive. Maybe it's overplayed. I think it probably is overplayed, but it's very emotive. It makes it more difficult to get permits in the Philippines. So we're using a green solution, a non-cyanide solution. So some metallurgy work that will be done on various ones, cyanide substitutes. So we've done that in Korea actually historically, and we got very similar recoveries, which was positive to that of cyanide. Next question. What's the latest in South Korea? Well, I just gave you the latest in South Korea there. We're looking still at the refurbishment of the adit and what's been happening there in Gubong. Are you going to revisit the business case financials given the increase in the price of gold and silver? Good question. Yeah, we could do. So let's look at Batangas. I mean, Batangas had a pre-feasibility study done. I think it was back in 2014-15. Obviously, the price of gold was very low back then. So the economics of Batangas has been transformed. Now, part of the declaration of mining project feasibility and the approval is an updated feasibility study. And that will be very detailed, very refined, very accurate in terms of what is the project economics going to be. The project economics were attractive before, but they're going to be a whole lot more attractive now when the declaration of mining project feasibility work concludes. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's going to be good. Of course, in Korea, we know that the economics are very attractive in both Ko Chang and Gubong. Those were calculated previously on very low gold prices. We know where gold is today. It transforms the economics of the projects. It brings break even on the projects, forward significantly, materially. So at some point in time, we will definitely do that. Of course, once we get the permits, we start moving into the construction phase. I think everyone's going to be quite excited about the economics there. Next, what capex is required to get everything up and running? How quickly can we see revenue, and what is the anticipated revenue and profit margin? Well, I think we sort of touched on that. Capex in Batangas, first of all, with the declaration of mining project feasibility will confirm this. My personal expectation is that the capex is going to be sub $5 million on the first 100,000 ounces, very cheap. So I think that's going to be very that's going to be very good. The capex on Gubong, Ko Chang, it's basically a phased. We know at Ko Chang, $2 million is more than adequate to bring about production in Ko Chang, and $5 million in Gubong will bring about initial production in Gubong as well. So those are some of the economics there. Next question: will you bring in offtake partners? Well, you don't. So this is gold, right? We're talking gold. You don't really need offtake partners so much for gold. Gold is easy to sell. In the Philippines, you can sell gold to the central bank of the Philippines. In Korea, you can sell gold to the Korean central bank. So selling gold is not a challenge at all. So typically, you think about offtake partners, you would think about other metals, nickel and so forth. When you say big prize, what are we talking about, and what's in our way? Well, the big prize is getting gold out the ground. So let's look at Batangas. First 100,000 ounces. Let's say cash cost of $600 an ounce. Let's say, I think it's going to be about that, right? So right now, current gold prices, there's $2,000 of net profit. So figure that one out over 100,000 ounces. Figure it out over as the resource size reserve increases. It's a very, very big number. That's just Batangas alone. So look, the prize is very big. I don't really focus so much on the big prize. I focus on how we get there. So what's in our way is, well, processes, right? Declaration of mining project feasibility, environmental compliance certificate, Batangas. Korea, mountain temporary use permit. Obviously getting a land agreement, we'll do that quite easily, I think, in Gubong. Obviously there's construction to go through, there's more metallurgy to go through. There's a number of I wouldn't call them obstacles, we call them obstacles, barriers or paths that we've got to walk down to get there. So that's that one. There was another question that somebody asked, who is the local partner? I don't know if I saw it, somebody in Batangas, the company called Alpha Diggers, that was an SPV vehicle set up by the Rodriguez family, have been in mining for over 50 years. When I say mining, not so much mining exploration, producing mines, have had some of the largest mines in the Philippines. So that was one of the reasons why we selected them as partners. I've known them for almost 20 years. So they understand the mining, they understand permitting, they're very, very well connected within government. So that was one of the reasons why. So we've gone through all of the questions, and if anybody wants to ask another one, you're welcome to do so. We've done it all in 22 minutes. I don't know if that's a record.
Aidan, thanks very much indeed, and thanks for covering off all those questions. Of course, as you say, any further questions that do come through, do please fire them across, because the team will be able to review those and publish responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Perhaps, Aidan, before redirecting investors to give you their feedback, which I know is particularly important to you and the team, can I just ask you for a few closing comments, maybe?
Yeah, look, I want to thank everybody who's shareholders for their continued interest and support in the company. I hope that you have the confidence to take part in the placing component. I think that will be fantastic if you do. But look, the management's committed. We've demonstrated that by our conversions into equity. We're going to keep pushing forward. Nothing is certain in this world, as we know, but we are working absolutely hard. Hold on. Here's a question. What are the main reasons given by the authorities that the TMUP hasn't been issued so far? MTUP, Mountain Timber Use Permit. So, okay, a couple more questions coming up here. So, it doesn't really work like that. So so they don't really say, oh, well, we're not issuing this. It's not sort of done so much formally as such. So it's basically they keep spinning around with questions. What that basically means is they're not ready to say yes. And then you've got to really kind of delve into why, what needs to be done. This is where local partners are so much better than foreigners in a place like Korea, because you understand the nuances of culture and so forth. So again, as I say to you, any permitting, apart from exploration permitting, that's pretty easy. Permitting really comes down to several factors: politics, local, provincial, sometimes national, environmental, and social. So basically, if you think about this, right, who grants that mountain temporary use permit? The local government, right? Who runs the local government? An elected official. What does an elected official want to do? Make sure he gets re-elected, right? So he wants to make sure that everybody is going to be on side for this type of project, and also that he's completely satisfied environmentally, that no one's going to come back and bite him in the ass, basically. So these are some of the things that we have to go through, which is normal in any permitting process. You never apply for a permit for production and in your application you get a letter back 14 days later. Thank you very much, approved, off you go. It never works like that. It's a process. Next question. Given the undervalued status of the shares, why not do a share buyback to clear up disbelievers? Yeah, could do. You could do, but here, look, I'd rather convert disbelievers to believers, so people buy stock or buy more stock. I think you've got to look at the best use of capital. We've announced funding of £350,000. That'll keep us going until the last quarter of next year. Not sure it's a great idea if we would then now suddenly use some of that to buy back shares, but who knows?
And thanks indeed for taking those last few questions. As I say, if there's anything further you want to just wrap up with, otherwise we'll send those investors to give you some feedback.
Okay, thank you very much.
Lovely.
Have a good day, everybody.
That's fantastic. Can I please ask investors not to close the session? It should now automatically be redirected to provide your feedback in order Aidan and the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of Aidan and Bluebird Mining Ventures Limited, I'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session, and good morning to you all.